It's March 2nd, 2023. This is Roqe. Hi there, welcome to episode 243 of Roqe. Poison attacks on schoolgirls. Hey UNICEF in the West, anything? I'm Jian Ghomeshi. Hello from Toronto, salam dostan aziz, durud ba shama. Deadly poison attacks on children and university students. Hey UNICEF in the West, anything at all? Maybe the saddest part is that for Iranians, this is not really a shock. It's the kind of reality we get used to around the clock. So, as many of you likely know, news has emerged that the murderous regime in Iran is now responsible for deliberately poisoning schoolgirls across the country. The numbers at the time of this essay: over 1,000 students in over 50 schools, at least one dead, many hospitalized, an entire population traumatized. Hey UNICEF and Western leaders, anything at all? To be fair, it's not entirely new. These kinds of chemical attacks on the Iranian people at the hands of this dictatorship have happened in the past. And even in this case, hundreds have fallen ill since November, yet the government refused to admit the attacks were intentional until this week. Now they're not even denying it. Why practice any equivocation when your goal is to terrify an entire population? But as a young woman in Mashhad tells me in our latest episode today, nothing surprises us with these mullahs. Imagine for a moment how dark, twisted, and deadly things have become in Iran, that the deliberate poisoning of children is not a shock. And yet, where is UNICEF? Where is the West? Where is the UN beyond virtue signaling talk? Well, let's see. UNICEF issued some kind of statement saying they are following the news about the attacks. Gee, that sounds like dramatic action. Thanks, team. And the UN, well, they've been reprimanding this regime by allowing the buffoonish foreign minister to give a speech at the Human Rights Council this week. And you know what? The representatives from all those countries that attended didn't end up walking out on him. Quite the opposite. Many applauded. If the deliberate poisoning of hundreds of children is not enough to seep into your conscience, if it's not enough to prevent you from wanting to do a deal with the perpetrators creating the ill, pretty much nothing will. And the mainstream Western media, don't look their way. That same prevaricating Islamic Republic foreign minister was given a platform on CNN to peddle his bullshit. Poison attacks on schoolgirls. Hey, UNICEF in the West, anything? Perhaps this is a moment to remind ourselves that the European Union and Canada are still evading the idea of putting the IRGC on the terrorist list. Embassies have not been closed. Ambassadors have not been called home. In many ways, Iranians are alone. Better we know it than continue to hope that the West will do a thing. Better we know it and remember that despite lip service, self-interest will always be king. But the revolution will come, and we will expose the morally broke. And UNICEF and the UN, assuming you continue your inaction, you will forever be a joke. Coming up on this episode of Roqe, part 8 of our Voices from Inside Iran series, including guests joining us from Mashhad, Tehran and Tabriz, plus a special extended Roqe Roundtable. This is Roqe, episode 243, Poison Attacks. Hey UNICEF in the West, anything? Here we are in our Toronto studio on a Thursday. We've got coming up on this episode, Voices from Inside Iran. This is a series that I think is one of my favorite things that we've done. This is where we hear from people on the front lines, usually young voices from different parts of Iran, inside Iran right now, giving us their first-person accounts of what the vibe is there, what's happening with the revolution, what's happening with their lives, families, the regime, etc. And we're going to hear from, we've got people lined up in on the front lines in Mashhad, in Tehran, in Tabriz today. So we're going to get to all of that. And I look forward to speaking to these. Actually, we've done one of these already. We pre-taped one with somebody in Mashhad that I was referencing in that opening essay. So that's coming up. Voices from Inside Iran. This is part 8 of that series. In the meantime, gathered around me here, Pegah, hello.
Hello.
Hello, KNZ, behind the recording console.
Hello.
Our engineer. And hello, Darya.
Hello.
Back with us for a roundtable today. You know, I wanted to start with something uplifting besides my opening essay about poisoned children and lack of action. The most uplifting thing I can say is what a shitty week this has been.
I was really hopeful.
No, I really have
uplifting.
nothing. I've got nothing. I mean, from the perspective, we can point at, here was a good speech given by an opposition leader or something. But the truth is, it's been a really, really crap week, I think, for Iranians, taking into consideration, I mean, the week started with the appearance of this, buffoonish Islamic Republic Foreign Minister at the UN Human Rights Council, being given an audience there where people didn't walk out, stayed there, as I mentioned in the essay, and some of them applauded for him. Then little Pirooz died, and on Monday, remember during the show, we knew he was going into, I said, hopefully he's going to be okay. And then a few hours later, in fact, as soon as our podcast came out, we heard Pirooz had died, which, was horrible news. It's funny how one of these things that, it is an indication of another disgusting, horrible indication of life under this regime, et cetera, in Iran. But it's the death of an animal, and yet it feels like this huge symbolic, blow to everything, the revolution, the people of Iran, et cetera, because he represented so much hope. Then, of course, the ongoing and worsening news of the poisoning of these children, these schoolgirls, which is just astonishingly horrific, which again I mentioned in the essay just now, but I know is going to be the point of our one of the main points in our roundtable. But then I also wanted to mention, did you guys see this interview with, again, he's getting a lot of airtime here, but Hossein Amir Abdollahian. This is the Islamic Republic Foreign Minister, stooge, puppet, Pinocchio, whatever you want to call him. He did this interview with Christiane Amanpour.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, I have an opinion about this that I want to share, and let me issue a couple of disclaimers first. First of all, Christiane Amanpour has done really important work over the years. I think she's, there's a track record of some really, really impressive interviews, and I have no question she's a hardworking journalist, and don't know her. Some things she's done I don't agree with, but that's the way it is with everybody, and overall, good for her, right? Great, and a strong, powerful presence in media. I don't understand the point of interviewing this person at this moment. More specifically, giving a platform to somebody giving a huge platform, the CNN platform. Now, I know the argument would be Christiane Amanpour is a world-renowned journalist, so she will bring this person on and ask him tough questions, and he will be exposed as, an idiot, which is somewhat of what happened. But I still don't understand the exercise. And I'm actually quite surprised that no one, seemingly in our diaspora, is reacting to this and going, why did you give this guy a platform? CNN. I mean, I get why it's good for Christiane Amanpour and CNN. Ratings, attention, she gets to be tough and ask questions and all of that. But honestly, at this stage, does this person really have anything? Is there anything at all that he's going to say that is unexpected or new or will represent anything other than 44 years of this regime's bullshit, which he was already peddling this week? There's no point. He's just done this speech and answered questions and said idiotic things like not one person has been killed. He said all those things. Yeah. So now you're going to give him a platform. And my concern about it is not for the Iranian audience, because in a way, it actually kind of serves the Iranian audience. Christiane asks a tough question, and but there's evidence that they are killed, and then he looks like an idiot, and everybody shares video of it and goes, "Oh, what a buffoon this guy is." But Iranians are not the only audience for CNN.
Exactly.
CNN International. Yeah. It's a massive. So you agree with me?
I'm waiting for you to finish because
okay.
I am so angry about this.
So in other words, there's a big international audience who are watching this that don't have the background, never heard of this guy. You know, they heard, oh, Iran's a bad place, or you know, there's a dictatorship or something, but watch this and go, well, you know, he seems kind of soft-spoken, you know, why is she badgering him so much? I mean, they don't even go, okay, there's two sides. You know, there's the side that she's presenting, which people have been killed. He's saying nobody's been killed. Maybe it's somewhere in the middle. It's nowhere near in the middle.
Exactly.
There's nowhere near in the middle. This is a person, every single thing he said was a lie. So you are actively bringing someone on that you know is going to lie about everything on a major platform, and it's not a new government. They didn't just, Islamic Republic's not in the first year where you go, okay, let's do some interviews and really learn about who these people are. It's the opposite of that.
Yeah.
So it was really kind of, you know, I've been going back and forth, and I know that I even texted a couple of journalists. I was like, what is it? Are you not, you know, and they said, well, you know, she'll ask him, it'll expose him, but it's not going to expose him because he's not Will Smith. You know, he's not like this known figure that everybody's already debated about. Again, for the Iranian community. But, you know, if you're just sitting out there, you're watching your nightly show with Christiane Amanpour, and she asks these, and you kind of go, okay, well, you know, I guess this is the official guy. Look, and he's all dressed up for the interview. And I'm not convinced that platform should have been given to this person at this time. Even, like I said this before at one of our shows, you know, a couple of years ago when I was interviewing Homer Sashar for Roqe, and I said, would you interview Zarif? It was like 2 or 3 years ago. I guess he was still foreign minister. I don't know. And she said, yeah, I would. You know, I'd like to. I think it's important to interview him, hold these people to account. Okay, you know,
but
we're in the middle of right now, schoolgirls are being poisoned to bring this. You know, anyway. So that's I was going to ask you if you had a similar take.
Oh,
on
I'm
this,
ready. I'm like amped up to tell you everything I think about this. First of all, we just came off of this walkout on the Islamic Republic campaign.
Right.
Given his speech at the
UNHCR. Do not sit inside there while this same guy does a speech at the UN.
We literally asked as many foreign ministers, delegates, NGO representatives, journalists, anyone who was going to be in the room. We begged them for weeks, walk out when this guy starts talking. We put ourselves, and I say we as Iranians in the diaspora, you know, we put this big campaign out there. We put all this effort behind it. And then only to turn around and have one of the biggest Iranian American journalists sit down with this individual and give him a platform on one of the biggest news channels in the world. Are you kidding me? That's what is happening in the same week. That's the first thing. The second thing is, again, like you said, as Iranians, we all knew what to expect in terms of the answers, the double talk. There
was nothing in there that wasn't expected. It was good fodder. It's good fodder for Twitter. Oh, look what this idiot said for the Iranian bubble.
Yeah.
But
what I'm worried about is the non-Iranians.
Right.
Because for anyone who's not as involved and so deeply into what is happening every second over the course of the last 6 months and is not Iranian and doesn't have Iranian friends, let's say, they would look at this and say, well, he's not that bad, you know? And they don't know.
Maybe
I mean,
they might. Yeah.
I think the way he was.
You ever seen you seen somebody from another country, like some leader from Asian country talking, and you go, okay, well that's their leader, and then somebody from that country goes, do you not know this guy?
Exactly.
You know, and you go, oh, okay, that's a dictator.
That's right. Know. Yeah. And I think we've talked about this before on the show, where we've said, you know, things have changed so much in the last little while for Iranians. We're no longer receptive to reform the way that maybe we were, I don't know, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, whatever it was, or we no longer have the tolerance for so much. Whereas maybe 5-6 years ago, like you said, someone like Homer Sashar would say, yeah, you know what, I'll have the conversation. Maybe there's room for dialogue and things like
absolutely.
that. We don't have that anymore.
I'm not suggesting we should only interview people we agree with, ever.
No, absolutely
I'm not ever suggesting that. And if Christiane Amanpour would come on the show, I would love it. I would love to hear her reasoning. I'm sure she has a reason why she thinks this is a good idea. And I would love if Christiane Amanpour is listening, come on and talk to us and tell us why you think it's a good idea or what we learned from this.
Yeah. But here's the thing.
Listen to you though. I was trying to be nuanced about it.
I'm not.
All right.
I'm all there, and I still have more. I like her. I'm a fan of hers.
Okay.
But she did not do a good job in that interview.
No?
I'm sorry, she did not.
Okay.
The only time that she pushed back was about the drones in Ukraine, where she pulled out the photos and was really giving him a hard time. No, I mean,
she pushed back on people not dying and people being.
Not really, not enough. I mean, not once did she actually look at him and say, "You're full of shit." Excuse my language, but you're lying. I mean, we have fact, we have evidence. There's dead bodies piling up in that country.
See, again,
and you're going to tell me no?
That's the thing. As an interviewer, if you're going to bring somebody on that you know is only peddling shit, what is the point? Because unless you're just going to sit there and say, that's bullshit, that's bullshit, that's bullshit, in which case you're doing it for the exercise to get clicks or something like that. And let's imagine that this was for a higher standard somehow. I don't know. But, that what is the point then?
Yeah.
Surely that, I mean, in other words, it's like, well, let's learn what he has to say.
Yeah, but
what's the justification for what what justification?
Well, there's
none.
We're past it. Sorry. Go ahead, Darya. We bring you in here.
I was just going to say there is no justification. And that's the thing, as you said, like for non-Iranians, when they listen to this, they think, oh, okay, maybe he's right 80% of it, lying 20% of it. No, like it's 0%. Like all of it is lie. And then there's nothing out of it. And then we were listening right now to it. And Kenzie got angry and she just left. She was like, I can't listen to this. And
right?
I don't blame her. Like, yeah.
Honestly, listening to 5 minutes of it was enough to like understand that this guy is just going to keep lying and just not tell the truth and pretend like everything is totally fine.
And the thing is that it's not like he hasn't been available. It's not like we don't know what his position is, right? It's like he's coming out of the reclusive foreign minister that no one has spoken to is doing an interview. I mean, he's been around. He's been on tour all week. He's been at the UN. He's been issuing statements. He was in the hallway. Iran International was running after him. Nobody's been killed. I mean, we already know all that stuff, right?
But you know what I was saying about her not pushing back enough? So, for example, he mentioned how Iranians are, in support of the MEK, or Iranians in the diaspora are in support of the MEK, and why is there a double standard with the leader of the MEK having a hijab, but then Christiane Amanpour is giving him, a hard time with the hijab regulations and laws and whatnot in Iran. But this is what I mean. She didn't negate that. She didn't come out with facts and say, look, no, that's not the case. There's the opposition that the Iranian diaspora is
but
supporting.
Again, this is the problem with bringing somebody on like that, because either you're going to spend the whole time debating, in which case that's not an interview. That's just like, I'm bringing someone on to debate them, which is very fashionable these days. Let me bring Trump on and show how tough I am by ambushing him with all these questions. But what is the point? That's the question.
I think with an individual like this, though, the traditional interview doesn't work, and that's why I'm against this.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And the other thing is that I'm really upset with CNN as a whole, and I'm just angry at the world today. So I'm sorry, but
it's bad way. Pirooz died.
Yeah, exactly. I'm really upset with CNN because here they are giving airtime to this buffoon, and yet not once have they given prime airtime to the opposition outside of Iran.
Yes.
Well, the opposition,
whatever the opposition
is, right? Where is this airtime for someone like Masih or Reza Pahlavi or any one of the other members of this quote-unquote coalition?
Put Hamid Ismailioun on Christiane Amanpour.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
So, that's my rant. That's part of it anyway.
Well, I mean, I didn't know actually you were going to come firing at that. I actually thought, because the thing that surprised me is I thought I was quite alone in my thinking, because I haven't seen anybody, at all. I haven't seen anybody in the Iranian
I have friends
communities
sharing this all over Instagram, and I'm like,
and here's the moment where she held the iPad up or something. It's like, okay, well, anyway, maybe, like I say, maybe there's some reasons that have escaped me why this was an important interview to do, but it sort of capped off a very dispiriting few days. And we've talked about how this revolution is, or this uprising, or just the situation in Iran in general, let's put it that way, is not something we can engage in day trading about. It's a process. It takes a while. Revolutions take weeks, months, years. And so we can't expect to live and die by each day. One day there's an amazing protest, or there's something great happening in Brussels or LA, and the next day there's some horrible news, and so we've gotten used to that. It just felt like a lot of downer news this week.
Yeah,
and
it's a hard week.
If we kick off this roundtable, before we get to our voices inside Iran, and I'll put this to them, see what they think. We have to talk. I mean, I did it in the opening there, but about these poison attacks, these chemical attacks against schoolgirls and children. Tell us exactly where we're at with this as of this recording, at least.
Yeah. So recent conservative estimates have pointed to 1,000 girls who have been affected over 10 cities and 26 different schools. And again, I want to stress that these are conservative estimates because, we're constantly seeing images and videos and reports, and conversations are being had with the parents of these young girls. So, I mean, that in and of itself is enough to shake me to the core.
Well, can I except for the fact that it's not a surprise, as I said, the essay, that's the saddest part. But can I just put a pause for a second there? And just press pause and go, there are people who continue to, or sometimes will say, come on, enough of I prefer Roqe when you guys are doing fun stuff, or do you always have, everything has to be about the revolution right now, or can you not do something else, or talk about something fun, or have something lighter? When would 1,000 schoolgirls in Iran being poisoned not be the thing we shouldn't be talking about, that we should be talking about? It's just, I cannot do an uppity interview with RF right now. You know what I mean? Like, this is like, we get so used to this stuff. It is again like something out of an evil Marvel comics movie, right? Let's poison the kids of a country. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Unpause. Go ahead. Back to you.
I was just gonna. I mean, we've talked about this, and I think almost any Iranian across the globe right now knows that this is happening. But I want to pinpoint some things. And again, going back to my usual stats situation, but there's reports that what's been used in terms of this gas is actually an organophosphate agent. So what that means is that this is some sort of toxin that's typically used in agriculture. So think things like insecticides or pesticides, things like that. Now, anyone who's ever had a child or an animal or has taken care of any living thing, even a plant, there's chemicals in everyday things. So let's say you have a bottle of bleach or something like that lying around. How careful are you to not have it spill on the ground or be in the reach of a child or next to your plants or any... And to think that these individuals are taking these toxins, turning them into chemical, I don't know, what word do I use? Weapons, warfare, like what do you want to call it, right? It's a war on these children. It's terrorism on your own people. It's every unimaginable thing that you can think about. And you're using it on these young girls, 13, 14, and there's thousands of them now. I mean, it's unbelievable. And like you said, there's part of me that is almost like, well, that's the Islamic Republic. But then another part of me that I'm like, how could you be this barbaric?
And by the way, like we said on Monday, it's not, the jury's not out on how this is happening. I mean, we might not know exactly who's pressing the button or the lever or whatever, but it's even the regime can't deny it at this point, and they haven't. They're actually accepting. We made some mistakes. So it's so it's not like this is like, what a terrible accident that happened in Iran with the poisoning of 1,000 school children. Yeah. Right.
And there's more from the deputy education minister. I mean, I know I quoted him a couple days ago, but now he said a couple more things that, again, will continue to anger, I'm sure, me and many other people. But he's recently said that it's been revealed that the chemical compounds used to poison the students are not war chemicals. So he's defending what's happening. He's saying the poisoned students don't need aggressive treatment, and a large percent of the chemical agents are actually treatable.
Wow.
So that's great.
Yeah. Thanks so much. They're not dying.
Darya, you give us your take on this.
I can say that I told you, Jian, that I'm so angry about this. like, to your point, Pegah, anytime that regime does something and we think that, okay, this is the worst thing that they can do, they do something to prove us wrong, and like, okay, there is a new low point for them. And attacking schoolgirls, and then like one thing that it makes me so angry is that like they keep saying that, oh look, we don't have any lead on who's doing it and who's behind it. Bullshit. Like anyone who's ever been to Iran for even one day, they know that security in schoolgirls, it's like a prison. You cannot go near schools for girls without, have your proof of identification, like what you do in there, what's your,
So I didn't know
relationship.
this. So,
like,
in all over the country, it's a pretty tight security when these schools for girls.
Yeah, at least like anything that I've been to, or anyone like around, like in my family, any girls who was in any of the schools is like that. And like for me, like my experiences from like 15 years ago, without like security cameras and everything, which I'm pretty sure it's like everywhere right now. Yeah, we have like concierge security guards like at the door of the school.
So it's not easy to mess with all that stuff and not be found out if somebody wants to find you.
Not at all. Like if your mom wants to come and pick you up, like they have to prove that, okay, I'm like,
wow,
like Darya's mom, I'm picking her up.
I did not know it was that intense at the schools. Is that your experience, Kenzie?
Yeah, it is pretty strict as to like who gets to come in and who gets to go out. Usually, over the years they get to know who your parents are, and they kind of get used to, okay, this person is picking up this kid. But then if someone comes there and is unfamiliar to the people, they usually can't get through without going through certain security checks and talking at least to the people at the school.
Yeah, and then like there's no way that people like randomly come to school, just throw things into the school, poison like students, and no one would notice it.
Well, you're mentioning, a mother picking up their child. I mean, that viral video of the mom going to the school after she had found out that her daughter had been poisoned. I mean, for anyone who is unsure of what I'm referring to, there was a viral video that showed a woman at the door of a school, and she's getting her hair pulled, and she's getting almost like pulled in a million different directions and almost aggressively grabbed by a bunch of guards, I guess. And I don't know if they're from the school or if they're from the Basij or whatever, but I mean, that's a clear indication. Like there's someone
not to mention that the regime doesn't seem to have any trouble finding a couple that were dancing in front of the Azadi Tower for at midnight, but they can't suddenly solve this widespread
big mystery.
So go ahead, Darya. Do you have anything more to add to that, or you?
They're also actually saying contradicting things. Like some of them are saying that, there are some radical Islamic groups behind it. Some are saying like the regular thing that they always say, dushman, like the enemy is behind it. I'm like, okay, sure.
Exactly. That's what I was just going to say. I mean, and sorry, she was saying they refer to it as dushman, which means enemies. And my question is always,
who is dushman?
Who is dushman?
Yeah, exactly. Because there's this like mystical idea of like these enemies, and I mean, in a situation like this especially, who's gonna target?
I mentioned this on Monday, but you're KNZ, you were a schoolgirl like these girls, like not that long ago in Iran. Tell me how you're processing all of this.
I just think it all kind of feeds into the cycle of fear, because I do believe that one of the Islamic Republic's biggest weapons is just spreading fear. And what they're doing now in these schools is not only creating another like generation of people being traumatized by what they can do, which they have done already to all the older generations. That's why we see them being more scared to like come to the streets and protest. So they're doing that to the younger generation, but they're also kind of targeting their parents at the same time. And parents, when it comes to the younger generation, they're the ones taking care of their kids. They're the ones telling their kids, don't go on the street. It's dangerous out there. So by doing this, they're kind of making sure that these parents are going to stop their kids from doing anything in terms of making this revolution.
It's a really good point.
It is.
It's a really good point, because ostensibly this is about, we want to stop these terrorist school children,
Yeah.
but obviously the impact it's going to have is on the parents who are going to double down on, you better not go outside, you better not leave the house, you better not, and you're definitely not going to go on that protest in Shiraz on the weekend, right?
Well, we're already seeing a decline in students attending schools since this has been happening, and since the news of it has become more widespread. There's parents who are not allowing their children, and I mean it's girls and boys, by the way, to not attend school in fear of them going to school and being poisoned. And just to add to what KNZ just said in terms of the concept of fear and the manipulation of fear with older generations, it's so funny that as soon as you said that, I just think of my mom. And I've lived in Canada since I was 5, but I've always been really invested in what was going on in Iran, and I've always had this interest in politics and human rights and all these things. So growing up, I used to attend a lot of different protests, and this wasn't common and wasn't widely accepted by my parents especially, and my mom especially. And her thing was always, I'm afraid when you go to these things, I'm worried when you go to these things, and especially if it's about Iran, what if this fear that's ingrained in my parents, for example, is exactly what you're referring to. It's this tactic that they've used, that they've been traumatized by, that stretches halfway across the world.
Listen, my family hasn't been able to go back to Iran. I mean, I've never been able to go to Iran for various reasons, mostly politics in the last 20 years. Before that, I'd have to go into Sarbazi and, that type of thing. And my mom still, after Monday's show, she was like, do you think it's, maybe you shouldn't call the foreign minister a buffoon? It's like, mom, that ship has sailed. Yeah. I think they're after me already. I'm not sure that, I've done anything more, but that is, that's the job of parents to worry about their kids. And so this is probably part of what's going on, the impact. Although, Kanzi, you make a great point that since the beginning of this thing in September, the hallmark, like what every person came on, especially in those early months, and said was, these kids, those 15-year-olds in Iran right now are braver than we were, right? Yeah. And I felt that. I was like, shit, they're braver than me. I'm not sure I would have done that. Look at them. And now, it's like, let's go right to the source. Right. Let's actually, scare the fuck out of these kids for the rest of their lives by actually poisoning them to the point where they can't breathe and they're in hospital, doing the famous George Floyd, I can't breathe. It's so horrible, right? And wipe out another generation.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's this never-ending circle of trauma is what it is.
Darya, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so no, what I was going to say is that, so right now there's also a debate that some people are saying that we should stop sending our children to school, and some are saying that no, we should just go, form human chain around the school to just protect them, which either of them, I don't know which one is right and even possible to do. But one thing that's very important is that because most of the attacks were on school, for girls, it's very important to just make sure that we're not isolating girls, because that's going to be again another thing of all the lists that we girls growing up Iran, we were quote we're supposed to do on for our own protection, just don't send them to school for your own protection. If you're not going to send your children to school, let it be just both boys and girls, not just girls.
I see. Right.
And
that's a good point. Yeah, I agree.
Well, and just to echo what I was saying at the top of the show in that essay, if UNICEF and I'm sorry, but if UNICEF and I feel like I'm so tired of writing the same essay over and over again. It was 6 months ago. It was where are you, West? If the poisoning, if the deliberate chemical attack on kids.
Thousands.
This isn't Guillaume Pierre Falak, God rest his soul, rest in peace, being hit by a bullet, which was horrible, right? In crossfire. This is the deliberate chemical attack, poisoning of kids. If that's not enough to inspire the organizations in the world whose job ostensibly it is to try and live up to a charter of rights for children that includes 100 things that the lines have been crossed here, then nothing is enough. Like we can officially, I mean, this is why I guess we're angry and down this week, because there was a little, and I feel like, it's a push and pull, because you don't want to, we want to keep people inspired and happy. And by the way, doing these voices inside of Iran, I know these people are we're about to go to Mashhad, we're about to go to Tabriz, they're possibly going to say things about what it's like on the ground there that are not inspiring, because they're not going to tell us there's 100,000 people in the streets. Yeah. And so, it's always like, but the reality of this is, there was a big UN Human Rights Council thing that was a big hope of what the walkout campaign didn't happen, didn't work. This stuff is not, the IRGC is still not on the terrorist list in Canada, with this massive Iranian community here pressuring and a prime minister who's out there, shaking his fist at the Iranian government. Nothing, no huge movement yet.
I think part of the mood this week is also because of what we've been saying, over the last 6 months, which is the West, quote unquote, has their own agenda at the end of the day. I mean, they still feel that it's more beneficial for them, whether it be financially or whatever their reasoning is, to still engage the Islamic Republic.
Well, that is the reason.
And
not whatever.
Well,
I mean, it's
I almost hate saying it, but it's the reality, right? And so I think over the course of the last 6 months, at least at the onset, we had things happen so quickly, and there were so many things that were inspiring, like the rallies and the demonstrations with thousands of people.
And it was all new.
And it was all new. And
yeah.
I think it's easier to have less hope right now. I don't even want to say lose hope, but it's easier to have less hope right now than 4 months ago, 5 months ago, that sort of thing. And so I think it's warranted that many of us are feeling this way, but I don't think we should give up.
I mean, look, Reza Pahlavi's been in Europe. He's been greeted and even accepted in some institutional bodies, like governmental bodies in Europe, as a legitimate representative of Iran or opposition representative, which is pretty huge. Masih Alinejad just got named one of the Women of the Year on Time magazine. Yeah. So I mean, there are these little, they're the top tier, but there's little victories in different places for Iranians who are doing important things, and the folks who are plugging away at that Massa Act in America, and there's people working. I know a lot of Iranian Canadians, starting. Kenzie, you were talking about something you've wanted to start, or some friends have started. It's a group to help people in Iran. There are things going on, stories that are inspiring, and we'd be remiss if we just ignore them all. Yeah. But on the balance, we can't sugarcoat 1,000 school kids being and some of them in critical condition, one of them dying so far. Yeah. So on that note, the death of Pirooz. Sorry, but I mean, what did we learn from that episode, do you guys think?
Lack of resources more than anything else. I think one of the biggest things that we saw is
Pirooz is the cheetah, the Asiatic cheetah, one of the last of his kind that died. Was a symbol of hope for Iranians, less than a year old, got sick, and then died.
And mostly due to the fact that they didn't have the resources to help him. I mean, I think one of the things I heard or read, and I'm not even sure which it was now, but there wasn't proper equipment when he needed dialysis. They didn't have a proper dialysis machine. There was some sort of an error in what was injected into him because of a misdiagnosis due to, again, lack of equipment to be able to tell what it is that he actually needed. The lack of support from organizations that are constantly picked apart by this regime. I mean, environmental groups, veterinarian offices, things like that are subjected to this scrutiny by the regime because of idiocy more than anything else. And I mean, all of that is what led to this poor animal dying. And not only was he the last of his kind, and now this species is no longer, it's endangered officially, right?
Yeah, I think there may be some other I don't know if he was the last of the last of the last of, but he was definitely the last of his kind in Iran.
Yeah. And so, I mean, not only that, but more importantly, I think, again, going back to the reason why the mood, I think, especially in today's roundtable is the way it is because he was such a symbol of hope.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like we talked about on Monday, he was part of what brought this community together in the midst of this revolution. Yet another thing that brought this community together in the middle of this revolution.
Anybody on Pirooz?
Yeah, like as Pegah was saying, in addition to that, he was the symbol of hope. What I think is that his death is just like the symbol of the whole endangered environment in Iran. And what I was thinking was that, okay, let's just think that they're gonna go today. Like, we went today and they're going. What's left of Iran? Like, this is a very sad thing to say. But
So you mean if the regime falls, there's so much damage that's been done?
It's so much. Yeah. And then, I grew up in Isfahan, and we all know Zion Dawood was just the symbol of that city, and is no longer alive at all. And a lot of these things, some of it may be recoverable, but a lot of it it might not. And
damage is done.
Yeah, we've heard that repeatedly, that this is the dark side of we all think that we're going to celebrate. Well, we will celebrate if the regime falls, but then the cleanup is going to be is monumental or monumentous. I've just developed a new word.
Yes.
I wanted to mention this is pretty local. Forgive me, but I wanted to give a shout out to the folks who are organizing a human chain in Toronto, or I guess not really in Toronto, just north of Toronto, Richmond Hill, in solidarity with the brave women of Iran. Sunday from 12 to 2 p.m., 16th Avenue to Major Mac on Yonge Street. Again, if you're listening somewhere else in the world and you're wondering what that is, that's a big street in Toronto. But this human chain, I think, is, you were just talking about a human chain around the schools in Iran. This is one that I think is an inspired idea, so I wanted to give them a shout out.
Yeah, I think it'll be nice, especially in light of everything that's happened over the course of this week, to have the community come together again this weekend.
Solidarity.
And maybe get that sense back,
We are on a mission here at Roqe Media. We're going to get to our Voices from Inside Iran in a moment, but we're coming to you on roqemedia.com, ROQE media.com. It's there that you can link to all of our platforms, and we're on this ongoing mission to build a new audiovisual encyclopedia of Iranian diaspora identity. So we are on Spotify, on SoundCloud, on Apple Podcasts, Instagram, Castbox. If you like to see visuals with Roqe, you switch over to YouTube. If you like your Roqe descriptions and bulletins in English and in Persian, check us out on Telegram. And you can support us by going to our website, roqemedia.com, pressing the Support Us button. It's in red right on the main page there. You can't miss it. And becoming a Roqe member through our Patreon page. Now, what is Patreon? If you're familiar with podcasts, it's a way that you can support your favorite podcast, or crowdsource for that podcast, or that organization through a monthly subscription. So we have a bronze, silver, and gold tier. Just go to that page, roqemedia.com, press the Support Us, and you'll be taken to the Patreon, and depending on which tier you're at, we're going to be offering you things, some participation, some extra inside bonuses as part of our Roqe community. So I've been doing each show, I do a little shout out to our new Patreon members, and so to Ilar Tajeri, who is a new silver member. Thank you, Ilar, and Hania Aryanpur, who's a new bronze member. Thank you to both of you guys. It's a pleasure to have you as part of our Roqe membership, and I'll do more names on the next episode. So again, Patreon at roqemedia.com, and we have a promotion.
Yes, March promotion.
A March promotion. First time we've had a promotion. So for the month of March, if you become a gold member of our at the Patreon page, which I think is, how much is that? $50 a month?
Yes.
All right. A mere $50.
A mere $50.
All right? Canadian.
That's right.
So that's really, if you're listing in the States right now,
it's peanuts.
It's nothing. It's the price of a stick of gum. we will give you, we've got these new, Anahita, part of our team, designed this T-shirt that says Free Iran, and also says something in Persian that I can't read.
I'm
joking.
joking.
I am joking. But the inside joke here is that Pegah doesn't get when I'm joking.
Here I am again, trying to actually respond.
I guessed that it said you
Yes.
don't know Azad, but I can kind of make out the letters too. So this T-shirt, we will give you one. If you become a Patreon member at the gold level, we will send you one of our new T-shirts, which are really pricey T-shirts. They
They're
cost
great
us a lot to
quality.
make.
They are.
Yeah, they are great quality, so we'll get you one of those. Thank you, Darya.
Thank
Always
you.
good to see you here, and always great to get your perspective. Appreciate
good to
it.
be
Thank
here.
you, Pegah.
Thank you.
And thank you, KNZ. Do we have our first person ready? All right. So let us go to our voices inside Iran. And first, we're going to go to Mashhad, and a young guy in his 20s who is an English teacher and has been active in the anti-regime movement, freedom movement in Iran. So for the purposes of this interview today, he has chosen to use the name Khodanur. So Khodanur, are you there in Mashhad?
Yeah, hello everyone, and I'm really happy to be in this meeting, and I wish all Iranian to be free one day.
An interesting name you've chosen, a conspicuous name. Of course, we know dear Khodanur was one of the young people who's been killed in this uprising. I'm guessing that's why you chose this name for today?
Yes, actually, he was all you know that he was in Zahedan and he killed really bad. So that night that I just see his picture, the way that he died, I really was going to cry.
Yeah. Khodanur, you have been active in the demonstrations since the beginning, since the killing of Mahsa Amini in Mashhad. You've been active, yes?
Yes, actually, from the first days that on a travel, and so when we get back to Mashhad, we understood that, wow, this was going to be really huge. The revolution is something happening like this, and from that moment, actually, we're a very small group. We start to just walking in the street and just to be with all the people that they're in the street. And that days were really awful. It was really frightening because the people, we cannot call them police, but they're in the uniforms.
Yeah.
That it is like they're police, and they just how can I say, they use batum to just frighten the people. They use gas tearing, and all the thing was, and actually it is really frightening right now.
Well, I was going to ask you because, you being in Mashhad, I mean, it's the second largest city in Iran, of course. It's a very, very big city, but it has not been one of the main centers of demonstrations, even though there have been big demonstrations in Mashhad. It is a place where the crackdown was severe. It is a religious city, of course, as well. And we even have we have lots of friends in Mashhad. We've talked to a couple of people in this series who have been inside Mashhad. We have a couple of Mashhadi people on our team here. So I know that it's not easy to be a demonstrator in Mashhad. It can be scary stuff. What would you say the atmosphere is like in Mashhad these days?
The atmosphere is really, I don't know, different here. People are living like normal, that nothing is happening here, and that's really awful. The people just having their own life, but they're quiet. Also, they're not happy with the situation, but nobody comes out. And if we want to go out, our parents really, they're really, how can I say, they're really scared that what's going to happen after 2 hours. My mom always called me when I was out those days.
I'm assuming that you're saying when people don't go out of their houses, they're afraid, etc. And you say things are normal kind of in Mashhad. You don't mean that you believe that all of these people support the regime, do you?
Of course, they're not supporting the regime. I remember the day that I was in Ahmadabad Street. We were walking in the street. We were just a group of people. I don't know, maybe 50 people. We were walking, and all the cars that they were out, they say, "That's great. Go ahead. I don't know. You're brave." But nobody comes out. We feel that they don't like this regime. Even the people who are religious nowadays, when we speak with them, they say that they are going to lose their belief even to Islam, and we hear this.
Do you personally know anyone or encounter anyone in your daily life who supports the regime?
Uh, I don't, I don't, I don't think anybody near me is like this. I don't. If I look at the people around myself, nobody's like this. If they were before Shahrivar, um, there were, I can say, 2 or 3 people that I didn't know that they support the regime. If they were in the circle of my life, now they're not.
Okay, so you do know a few people, but they're not obviously in your circle. It's so interesting and important for us to hear this from inside Iran because, we assume that there isn't a lot of support, and there was a survey that came out, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it's really hard to tell whether these surveys, these studies, these polls are accurate. That said that the support for the regime inside Iran was as low as 15%. Now, when we did this Voices from Iran episode last week, I asked a young guy like yourself he's in Rasht about whether he believes that 15% number is accurate. He said, no, it's not. It's actually much lower than that. He believes it's like 5 or 6%. What would you say sitting there in Mashhad?
Of course, of course. Even last week I had a kind of memory that I was talking with someone who was police, and he said that these people who are supporting the regime, they are like a Telati person, and even the police said, even we are someone who we don't like this regime. Even just we can say there are 2 or 3%. Maybe that's the correct. That would be the correct person that supporting the regime.
So this is an interesting dynamic. You've got a country, you're in a huge city in Mashhad, who you say very clearly doesn't support this regime. We believe that. We see the will of the people. And yet you've got a dynamic where people are afraid to come out in the streets, and we're worried that we're returning to the same state of the last 44 years where, or at least certainly in the last couple of decades, where people want change, but it's too hard to accomplish. How do you these days, express your solidarity or participate in this uprising if you're not going out in the streets?
The only thing that we can do is just to talk with each other, talk to the people that near us, or even in the street. That is the best way that we can, in Mashhad, we can do it to check our ideas.
You must be aware of the demonstrations that continue to happen in other parts of Iran, obviously in places like Kurdistan, in places like Zahedan. Do you get energy from that? Does that give you hope?
Of course. These days, I feel, I don't know, but I'm sometimes a little hopeless. But, sometimes I feel that, okay, all these years is passing. My young years, that even the people we are the same age, we're just losing our age, and we're not living. We're not living here. We're just breathing.
Wow, that's quite an image where you're losing your years. What's I mean, it's totally understandable that you're saying that. Can you draw a picture for me of what you feel like you would be doing that you cannot be doing right now inside Iran, even as a man, even as a male, let alone the way women and females are treated?
I think I want to say just something to you that, how hopeless we are. We just wanted a very simple living, that the money that we earn and the money that we pay for cost of living is not equal. And that is what happening here for all the people that are uh, 20 to 30 or even 40 years old. If you ask them, they just want a simple life, that this regime cannot bring it, and
Hmm.
we will make it to happen. We should make it to happen.
Hold on, what do you make of all the activity outside of Iran to try to bring attention? The de facto sort of opposition leaders who make these speeches, the giant rallies we have. Um, does that affect you? Do you like it, or does it give you hope? Do you want it to be different somehow?
Of course, the people that who are acting outside of Iran is our voice right now, and that is the best hope that we have.
It makes a difference to you, huh? When you see demonstrations in Toronto, you care about that?
Of course, one of my friends is in Toronto, and when I see that he's outside and he's demonstrating, so that's really a big hope for me. I myself.
Hmm.
That's a really big hope. I wish one day would come and we just have a normal life, just a normal life. It's nothing so big.
Can I ask you? You're in your 20s, so you wouldn't have been. You're not that far removed from being a student, a high school student, or even a primary school student yourself. You've obviously, I'm sure, heard about the news of these horrific poisonings of children, of schoolgirls, that have happened in a number of cities now. What do you know about it, and what is your thoughts on it?
I heard that these people who are doing this to the school are radical people, and I heard the news that one of these men said that they don't want girls to to study in school, and that is why they're doing it. I don't know why they're doing with kids. They're just students. How how can you do them with these schoolgirl? That's really
Do
frightening.
you Are you surprised? I mean, it's horrific, but are you surprised by knowing what this regime has done?
I don't know what are they doing, mister. I'm really shocked. No idea about that. No idea why are they doing it. You know, these days I'm feeling really bad. So 2 months ago, I really followed the news, every news that was happening on my Instagram. I was following them, but these days I'm really hopeless, and I don't open my Instagram in order not to hear these bad news that's happening for me, for all the people in Iran.
I'm so sorry to hear that. And honestly, I don't blame you. It's not been a good week. The Islamic Republic Foreign Minister getting a platform at the United Nations, the death of Pirooz, the poisoning of schoolgirls. It's not been a good week.
These days are going to the last days of a year, and I really wish that someday, the next year, all this news gonna be over and we will have a normal life.
Yeah, we're only a couple of weeks away or so from Nowruz. Will you celebrate Nowruz this year, or do you feel too bad?
How can I do it, man? No energy for me and the people around me. If today I asked some of my colleagues, how do you feel, and they say that they are not feeling okay to have any celebration. for example, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, these days were the best days because we were shopping, we were just cleaning our house, but we don't have any energy to do it. We're not happy. We don't feel Nowruz right now.
Khodanur, I thank you so much for taking the time today. Your insights and your honesty are really important to us to get that perspective from inside Iran. I hope you take care of yourself, and I hope things change for all of us so that you don't feel so hopeless in the coming days, weeks, and months ahead.
I hope so. It's going to be happen very soon, and we really miss the people who were around us, but they're not around us anymore.
Khudafis.
Khudafis.
It is nice for you to do a really slow fade, so and underneath the last 20 seconds of the interview, you can do it and bring it, but like very low, and then yeah. This is Roqe, episode 243, Poison Attacks. Hey, UNICEF in the West. Anything? I'm Jian Ghomeshi. You're listening to us at roqemedia.com. Next, I want to go to a law graduate, also in Mashhad. We're going to go back to Mashhad here. She has been active in the protests and on social media in the last 6 months. For the sake of this interview, we will call her Andishe. So right now, Andishe is joining us from Mashhad. Hello.
Salam, Anjam.
Merci. Thank you so much for doing this. I know that you may answer some of these questions in Persian. That's okay. Hachi rahatare. Let me.
Persian rahatare.
Okay. Let me ask you this first. I know you've been very active in the demonstrations in Mashhad, or at least you were early on. And at some point, the Ministry of Information was warning you, was asking questions. Can you tell us what happened?
به من که حالا من با هم تماس گرفتن برای اینستاگرامم و اینا، اصلا منو خواستم. من خودم فکر می‌کردم به خاطر تظاهراته، در صورتی که سورپرایز شدم و وقتی رفتم اونجا فهمیدم که به خاطر فعالیتم توی شبکه‌های اجتماعی و اینستاگرامم بوده و اصلا هیچ ربطی نداشته به این تظاهراتی که حالا ما میرفتیم موقع اعتصابات تو خیابون میرفتیم، استوری میذاشتیم و اینا. به خاطر همین استوریا و فعالیت هم تو فضای مجازی بود، نه صرفا به خاطر اینکه رفته بودم توی خیابون.
خب چی گفتن به شما؟
چیزایی که ما نمیدونم شهید دادیم، اینا رو باور نکنید، اینا الکیه همش، نمیدونم شما چرا دارین با این خارجی ها، سعودی ها، آمریکا دست به دستشون میدین، نمیدونم دیگه تو زمینه اینا دارین بازی میکنین و سعی کنین این کار رو نکنید، برای خودتون بدتر میشه اینجوری اگه بکنی. دفعه دیگه این الان صحبت دوستان است و اینا، ولی دفعه بعد از این خبرها نیست و یکم ترسوندن و که دیگه از این کار نکن. در شبکه اجتماعی اینستاگرام و حالا هر جا، تلگرام و واتساپ و اینا
جان، کجا پیدا کردن شما رو؟ یعنی تلفن کردن یا اومدن؟
باورت میشه من هنوز نمیدونم چه جوری، واقعا خودم هم نمیدونم، برای خودم هم جای سواله.
تماس که گرفتن کجا بود؟ تلفن کردن؟
نو کالر آیدی.
همینطوری یه روزی یه کسی تلفن کرد گفت I'm from the government and we're going to talk to you. همینطوری؟
بله.
ترسیدی؟
خیلی زیاد، مگه میشه آدم نترسه؟ خیلی ترسیدم، هم خودم، هم خانوادم، هم دوستام.
یعنی
اینستاگرامم دیاکتیو کردم.
یعنی وایسادی، you stopped protesting؟
بهم گفتن که فلان روز فلان ساعت بیا، مثلا فردا بعد از ظهر بیا به این آدرس. من اولش گفتم نه خب نمیام و اینا، و خب وقتی که مشخصاتم کامل دادن، آدرس خونمونو، ریز و درشت زندگیمو گفتم، من دیگه واقعا چاره‌ای نداشتم، ترسیده بودم و فکر کردم وقتی که برم بهتره. از چند نفرم پرسیدم، گفتم یعنی اگه نرم فکر میکنن که واقعا یه کار بدتر و بزرگتری کردم. و اینکه پشت تلفنم به من نگفتن که برای فعالیت توی اینستاگرام بوده، فقط گفتم بیا کارت داریم.
خب حالا چی شد وقتی که رفتی؟
وقتی که رفتم نصیحت و پند و موعظه و یکم حالا همین بازخواستم کردن. اتفاق خاصی بگم خدا رو شکر که چی برای من نیفتاد. تعهد گرفتن و چند تا برگه گذاشتن که فعالیت مجازی تو بنویس و چیکار میکردی و دیگه از این کارا نکن و بیا برو خونت. ولی خب خیلی استرزا بود و هنوزم که از من میترسم فعالیتی بکنم و دیگه نمیکنم اصلا.
So I was just talking to someone right before you. We were talking to somebody who he was calling himself Khodanur to protect his identity. He's also in Mashhad. الان داشتیم حرف میزدیم، میگفت که یه کمی هوپلس شده و گفته که everything is normal اینجا، یعنی مردم دیگه توی streets نمیرن، میترسن و فکر میکنه که هنوز همه دشمن این رژیم هستن ولی نمیرن بیرون. خواستم بگم که یعنی داره he's talking about you. You're the kind of person who was protesting before and you have been so warned, so terrified, so scared by these folks that you can't go anymore. You don't want to go outside anymore, right?
آره مثلا من قدیما قبل اینکه این تلفن بهم بشه و برم همه جا بدون شال میرفتم، ولی بعد از این همیشه یه ترسی باهامه که الان میان منو میکنن توی ماشین و میبرن و علیرغم اون میل باطنیم یه شالی دور گردنم میندازم، کلاه سرم میکنم و خانوادم هم میترسن. یعنی ترسم من بیشتر به خاطر خانوادمه که وقتی من میرم از خونه بیرون التماس میکنن که تو رو خدا مواظب باش، شال سرت کن، نمیارزه فلان.
So how do you feel that you cannot express yourself? You can't go out in the street and now you're not even can't be active on social media because you're worried about. How does that feel?
خفگی، خفقان واقعا و افسردگی زیاد. یعنی همش با خودم میگم که با خودم همش میگم من که شانس آوردم واقعا، چون توی همون شبایی که ما میرفتیم بیرون خیلی از آشناهامون رو گرفتن، حکم حبس بهشون دادن و با خودم میگم خب ما الان همه رفتیم اونا هم حبس گرفتن، چی شد کی از ما حمایت کرد؟ و الان دیگه خیلی اکتیویتی ندارم. حالا اخبار نگاه میکنم، اخبار رو چک میکنم، ولی واسه خودم بیشتر و واقعا حس بدیه، حس واقعا میگم خفگی که دارم میگم، یعنی حس میکنم که هوا اصلا اینجا کمه، واقعا هوا کم میارم، این که نمیتونم راحت خودم باشم، اون چیزی که میخوام و شیر کنم یا بنویسم یا بخوام یه چیزی بنویسم یا حتی لایک کنم با ترس و لرزه.
یعنی حتی از مثلا یه سال پیش بدتره الان؟
به نظرم چون من قدیما هم اکتیو بودم، الان رعب و وحشتش بیشتر شده. اون موقع مثلا من فکر میکنم کسی کار نداشت اونقدر، یعنی جدی نمیگرفت، ولی الان با این بازداشتی ها و نمیدونم این داستان ها اعدام و اینا همه ترسیدن که نکن سر تو هم میاد، تو هم میخوای بری تو زندان، تو هم میخوای به تجاوز بشه و این ترس خیلی فراگیرتر شده از یک سال پیش. یک سال پیش شاید کسی اصلا خبر نداشت، نمیدونست، ولی الان خیلی فراگیر شده. حداقل تو دوستای خودم هم میبینم که همه میگن نه بابا دیگه هیچ نمیشه، ولش کن، این همه رفتن مردن که چی. ولی من میگم اتفاقا به حرمت اونایی که مردن باید بین خودمون لااقل این آتیش رو زنده نگه داریم، به حرمت اون خونایی که ریخته شده و حقشون رو پامال نکنیم. یعنی من نمیتونم، مثلا تو تنهاییم خیلی گریه میکنم و همه دوستان خب میگن تو دیوانه ای دیگه و چی گریه میکنی، چی میخواد بشه، عوض نمیشه، چیزی نمیشه. اونا هم رفتن.
خب
و میگم تو خیلی درگیر کردی، تو خیلی درگیر خودتو کردی از زندگی، داری خودتو بیندازی و واقعا هم همینطوره. من قرصامو بیشتر مصرف میکنم، در طول روز قرص میخورم، شبم با قرص میخوابم. همین، یعنی اصلا لحظه این چیزا از ذهن من دور نیست.
Can I ask you a question, Andisha? Because I'll ask it in English, but if it's difficult at all, let me know. I can speak it. We'll do it in Persian. As I understand it, you graduated in law khundi, right? You. What is it like? What does law? It's a big question. Vali, what does law mean in Iran? If people are not able to, masalan, go in the street and give their opinion and without being put in prison or maybe even executed or tortured, how do you feel about law, this subject that you studied, is sitting there in Mashhad?
من وقتی که یادم میاد سنم خیلی کم بود، قبل اینکه برم مثلا دانشگاه، یه تصور خیلی رویایی از لا و حقوق توی ذهنم داشتم و همیشه دوست داشتم که از حقوق زنا دفاع کنم. حالا اون موقع عقلم نمیرسید که این ظلم سیستماتیک بر مردم هست. ولی وقتی رفتم داخل دانشگاه و یه سری درس‌ها رو خوندم، فهمیدم، با استادان بحث میکردم، فهمیدم که اصلا این حقوقی که من دارم اینجا میخونم واقعا به هیچ دردی نمیخوره عملا، و بیشتر زده شدم از اون درس. یعنی دیگه حتی یکی به هم بگه که وکیل، میگم نه، من اصلا دوست ندارم تو این نظام قضایی کار کنم، چون که اصلا حس خوبی به من نمیده. من برم از چی دفاع کنم مثلا وقتی به چیزی قلبم باور ندارم و مخالف منطقای منه؟ من چطور میتونم برم دفاع کنم از همچین چیزی و بخونم اونا رو باز به یه عده دیگه انتقالشون بدم؟ ذات حقوق خیلی چیز خوبیه، ولی نه تو ایران.
It's really sad to hear you say this. I mean, it's not a surprise. یعنی عجیب نیست، ولی
عجیب نیست. داره
خیلی ناراحت میشم. You love this subject, you want to study it, and you don't even believe in it anymore because of the circumstances in that country. It says a lot. Let me ask you a final question before I let you go. We hear this horrible news about these poison attacks, these chemical attacks on schoolgirls. Now 1,000 schoolgirls as of today. They're saying 50 different schools, different cities in Iran. What do you make of this?
حتی بیشتر. من میگم که خیلی بیشتر از 50 تا است تا الان.
Tell us your thoughts on this.
کلا دیگه هیچ چیزی اینجا منو سورپرایز نمیکنه. من تعجب نمیکنم از اینکه بچه مدرسه یا بهشون حمله شیمیایی بشه، گاز بزنن توی مدرسه هاشون، حتی اگه برن شلیکم بکنن بهشون، دردآور، دردناکه. ولی هیچ چیزی دیگه توی این کشور و مملکت منو سورپرایز نمیکنه. فقط خشم من و نفرت منو بیشتر میکنه و با خودم میگم که از اینا اصلا من چه انتظاری از اینا داریم؟ همینه که هستن. اینا وحشی هم واقعا. نظر من اینه. و اینکه نمیدونم واقعا اینکه بذاریم بریم بچه‌ها برن مدرسه مسموم میشن، اگه نخوان برن باز میگن که به اون تفکر طالبانی دامن میزنیم که خب بچه‌ها نرن مدرسه و اونا به خواستشون میرسن. و به خاطر اینکه الان خیلی گیجم، اصلا نمیدونم چی درسته چه غلطه. فقط به کسایی که دختر مدرسه‌ای دارن دور و برشون میتونم بگم که تو رو خدا مواظب بچه‌هاتون باشین. و اینکه خب پدر مادرم نمیتونن 24 ساعت در مدرسه واسن. اصلا من واسن چیکار بکنن؟ خیلی جالبه. من به خودم فکر میکردم موقع که ما مدرسه میرفتیم همیشه چند تا ماشین پلیس دم در واسطه بود واسه اینکه حالا ما پسر بازی نکنیم و اینا، ولی الان اونا کجان؟ الان پلیسا چی کار میکنن؟ فقط به پسر بازی ماها کار داشتن. دست دخترای مردم دارن مسموم میشن، یکیشون مرده، بدحالن، کجان؟ ولی خب در هر صورت میگم هیچ چیزی دیگه منو سورپرایز نمیکنه، هیچ چیزی. ناراحت میشم ولی سورپرایز نه.
من همیشه فکر میکنم که یه کسی که بره پروتست بکنه و تظاهرات بره، یه کسی هست که امید داره، یعنی فکر میکنه که میتونه یه اتفاقی بشه، میتونه change بیاره. Do you still feel hope that there will be change in Iran anytime soon?
الان به زودی نه، راستشو بگم شاید قدیما داشتم، ولی الان فکر میکنم حداقل 2-3 سال دیگه، چون که دارم بین این مردم زندگی میکنم و میبینم که واقعا اون امید انگار مرده و کسی دیگه اونقدر تلاشی نمیکنه و فکر میکنم که خیلی باید زمان بیشتری بگذره تا شاید چندین سال آینده این اتفاق بیفته. حالا از لحاظ سیاسی و نظامی ایناشو نمیدونم، اما از لحاظ مردم شناختی و بین دوستای خودم و جامعه‌ای که دارم توش زندگی میکنم میگم مردم مهمونیشونو میرن، حالا هر کی به وسع خودش، یکی اسکی میره، یکی خرید میکنه، یکی مهمونی آنچنانی میگیره، تولد، عروسی. فکر نمی کنم، یعنی واقعا خورده هم نمیشه به مردم گرفت، چون که زندگی ادامه داره واقعا.
It's not anything that I believe anybody listening to this program right now wants to hear, but I think it's an important, I really appreciate your honesty in telling us the way you feel and what you believe. Andisha, خیلی متشکرم. Thank you for this, and I hope we get to speak again. Merci.
ممنون از شما. مرسی.
خداحافظ.
خسته نباشید. خداحافظ.
This is Roqe, episode 243. Let's go to Tehran next, and a guy in his 30s who has been very active as a frontline demonstrator in various ways over the last 6 months. He is a tour guide, and we actually had him on once before, and as we did then, for the purposes of this interview and his privacy and safety, we will use the name Darya for him. Darya in Tehran, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Nice to talk to you again.
Nice to talk to you again. Thanks for doing this. I mean, the last time we spoke, you had an interesting perspective, not just as somebody who's inside Tehran, but as somebody who had been touring the country a little bit. So you had a taste of, or an idea of how the demonstrations and the protests were playing out in different parts of the country. Tell me what the atmosphere is like these days, and what you've observed most recently.
All right. Let me say that the situation here nowadays is like the fire under the ash. So people are shouting, people are angry, people are nervous. I think it needs some small thing to blow that up again.
Right.
So this is the situation. When I walk into the street on every cities, I hear at least 1 or 2 person are saying bad word to the government. That's really not funny, but that's painfully funny. Yeah.
Where have you been lately that you've observed this type of anger and attitude?
Lately, I've been around Khuzestan. I've been around Qesh. I've been around Tabriz. I've been around Isfahan. In these days, I've been in these situations.
Darya, do you see any discernible support for the regime?
No, really not. I never seen even one person that was But we should be realistic. The people that I'm connecting with them are the people on the street, are the people who are living, not the people in a high position that have connection to the government. So, no, no one.
We know there's been a lot of anger with this regime for many years now. Would you say that the atmosphere, even when people are not out on the streets, in demonstrating in the thousands, say they were the way they were in September and October, would you say that the atmosphere is different still from what it would have been, say, a year ago or 2 years ago?
Look, atmosphere is completely different. For example, you know that the Persian cheetah,
Pirooz.
yeah, Pirooz, they start to grow that, but the government said that we don't have money to invest on this. Suddenly, that animal got sick.
Yes.
When he got sick, they brought him to the hospital. And now we understand that we didn't have the dialysis machine for the animal in whole Iran, the rich country of Iran. They said that after the death of this poor animal, poor cheetah, they said that they inject him the wrong drugs.
Yeah.
So everyone that I know, I never thought that people's brain grow this much, that everyone got angry about one cheetah. You see, every little thing that happened, everyone got a lot angry. That's the situation right now.
It's a very profound point, and it's one that I actually made the same point that you're making on Monday on our show, because it's not only inside Iran. If this horrible situation with Pirooz had happened last year or 5 years ago, we might have heard about it. Some people who are really active when it comes to environmental issues or animal issues or something might have said some things about it, but it wouldn't have lit up the Iranian diaspora the way it has now. People are clearly conscious and angry. I mean, it's interesting. This fire underneath the ice, as you put it, is something that I would characterize is the case for those of us outside of Iran too. So is it your sense that, do we follow from that there's going to be some incident, some event, some moment that probably a horrible one that is going to reignite massive protests again?
If you remember the last time we talked, I told you if this protest is not going to be success, the next one will be. Because the social anger is so high. I never felt anything like that before. The social anger is out of the loop.
How does it express itself, Darya? How do you see and feel that anger? I mean, other than when you're talking to your friends or on social media, like say you're in Kashmir, you're somewhere and how are you seeing that anger?
Look, let me talk to you part by part. For example, around 12 years ago, 15 years ago, people didn't have the courage to say bad word against the supreme leader.
Right.
Nowadays, no one cares about the president. Who's the president? No one cares. Everyone say bad word about the mullahs and about the supreme leader. That's the difference between 15 years.
Right.
For example, yesterday, I went out in the street and I saw a family is talking with each other so loud and one old man said that, damn all the mullahs. He used F word. I will not use it. F all the mullahs. Okay, so this is the social anger.
Did he say it in English?
No.
Oh, the F word you're translating.
Yeah.
You're translating a Persian swear word to an English swear word. I see. Okay.
He shouted in the middle of the street, and everyone smiled at him. That's the good point.
Yeah. I mean, but at the same time, look, I was just talking like a little bit ago, we had a fellow on from Mashhad, a guy in his 20s who, unfortunately, in his case, is feeling quite hopeless because he says everybody hates the regime, but things are back to quote unquote normal, in the sense that people are too afraid to demonstrate, too afraid to go out, too afraid to say much. And so he's feeling heartbroken at this point. And I suppose because there isn't a lot more activity that the way there was, say, 3 or 4 months ago. Do you feel the same sentiments?
Look, we had a gathering with the tour guides around 1 month ago. I heard this sentence from another tour guide that they were disappointed. And I said that, look, this kind of revolution is kind of tiring. It's not something that happened in one night.
Right.
Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. But the most important thing is that it never goes down. For example, around 1 month ago, there were a protest again, and lots of people came to the street. The most important thing is that it should never be silence. The quantity is not the problem. Quantity sometimes is going to be high, sometimes is going to be down. The most important thing is that everyone are ready to act another protest. And it's going to be, yeah, exactly. It's going to be long journey. It's going to be tiring, and it's the only way that it can be happen.
Let me ask you this. That's a great perspective. Let me ask you this. With respect to the activity that's happening outside of Iran, because there's a fair bit, unfortunately, not necessarily from other countries or other leaders or ambassadors, etc., but certainly from the Iranian community around the world, there's a lot of activity right now. And I vacillate, Darya, to be honest, between, on the one hand, going, all of this that's happening, these demonstrations we go on, say here in Toronto, and these broadcasts I do like our show, and Reza Pahlavi and Masian Ali-Najad and Hamed and all these people making speeches. And I, on the one hand, I almost feel like it's play acting. Like it's like we're hoping and we're wanting, but it really doesn't have anything in particular to do with what's going on in Iran, and because this revolution has to, as we all know, happen inside Iran, not from the outside. On the other hand, I see all this activity and it gives me a lot of hope. And I go look at the power and the unity and the demonstrations and these great people who are, these de facto opposition leaders who are speaking and who have a platform that they didn't have before. What do you feel inside Iran about all of this activity outside, and whether it's making a difference for you or not?
Of course, when you see, look, the Iranians that are living abroad are Iranians. And when they have protests and when they show our voice to the world, when I see that this many people are on the street for the protest to support Iranian people, of course it's going to make me happy, because I see that these kind of people, this much people, are showing themselves that they are against the government.
Yes.
Always there are pressure against the government. And that's the best thing that can happen. And that's the best thing that can leave this revolution alive. Always they should remember that. The world should remember that. The government should remember that they have a lot of people against them. They should not be easy. They should not have calm sleep, nothing. They should always be worried, and that's help. That's a part of the journey that we should go.
I got you. Do you and your friends and the people you encounter talk about leadership, for example? Who's going to be the leader, how that's going to happen, any of that?
There were some arguments, yeah, because most of the people said that we are with Reza Pahlavi until the regime change and the new government come out. But lots of people are arguing, and again, I always talk to them. This is my belief. Even if Reza Pahlavi is lying and he wants to come here and have monarchy, throwing out the Pahlavi out of the country is more easier than throwing at the mullahs. For one time, we should be united to get the mullahs out of the countries. This is the thing that I always said, that in the worst situation, Reza Pahlavi is lying, and he wants to start a monarchy.
For some people, that wouldn't be the worst situation. They actually want a monarchy, even though he's saying he doesn't want one. But I understand your point that right now the priority would be. I mean, the response to that, the simple response to that is that happened once before, where everybody came together and said we don't want the Shah anymore, and look where that ended up. So people want to kind of have an idea of what comes next. Otherwise, there's fear that it can be something worse than this regime. But it doesn't get much worse, it seems, than what's happening right now. And before I let you go, I've got to ask you about this week because, as I've been saying, we've been talking about on the show before you came on here, it's just been a really sad week between the platform that was given to this foreign minister, this guy who, I called him a buffoon, but he's doing interviews, he's getting to speak at the UN, and then there's the Pirooz situation you were talking about. But probably maybe the worst thing that we've almost ever heard coming out of Iran is the intentional poisoning of schoolgirls, of children, of students. How are you processing that information, Darya? Does that make any sense to you? And what are the conversations you guys are having in Tehran about that?
Look, everyone knows that this poisoning, it's a chemical attack. Most of the attacks are to the schools that they had lots of activities against the government. So this is a chemical attack. You should not say that they're poisoned or something, and no one knows about that. This is a chemical attack from the Iranian government. That's so obvious to everyone. So they're attacking. They want the girls go home, because our topic sentence for this revolution were women, life, freedom.
Yes.
Last time I told you, the government are so dumb. They think that if they make the girls go home, this revolution going to be stopped. That much they are dumb. So this is totally clear for everyone that I know. They're doing it in purpose.
Their scare tactics have worked for 44 years, right? Scare the shit out of people, and then people don't go in the streets and can't come together to topple the regime. That's basically their play. That's their blueprint,
Let me tell
right?
you something. For example, nowadays, again, robbery is become a lot in Iran. Yesterday, I said that, look, the hidden army of Islamic Republic regime already went back home because we're not into the street, and they came back to their original job. When we had protests, there was no robbery at all. So you can see that they're using the thieves, they're using the bad people to scare the people. But this time,
Right.
I saw the previous time people try to be nice with the polices, with the people who come. I call them, we should call that basiji. People who come to beat the people. Previous times people were nice, but this time actually people killed some of them. So it's going to be more and more violence. Violence is not good, but sometimes it's necessary. You cannot deny it. When you have nothing to lose and someone is beating you to death, of course you're going to defend yourself. This is something undeniable, and that's why I said that the governments are dumb. They cannot understand such an easy thing, that when people have nothing to lose, if you beat them, they will beat you.
It's always informative and helpful and appreciated to get to talk to you. If I can make an observation, maybe a final question to you before I let you go. Maybe I'm remembering incorrectly, but I feel like talking to you this time, 3 months, say, removed from the last conversation we had, I feel like you're more fed up and more angry in this conversation. Would that be true?
Of course. I told you the social anger is high. I'm part of the social. So, yeah, I'm more angrier, of course. And I'm not also angry about Iranian governments. I searched about what happened out of the Iran, and I always wondered
Yes.
why, for example, Robert Malley is talking like this. Now I understand Robert Malley's son is work for the company that Trita Parsi, the founder of Nayak, who has the lobby of Islamic regime. Robert Malley's son worked for this person. So they are connected.
Yes.
For example, I surely want some independent organization go and search that guy. What was the name of that guy? The European Union. Yeah.
Yeah, the head of the
head of
EU, the head of the EU, Joseph Sopel or something.
Yeah. For example, I strongly recommend some independent organization, Joseph Borrell. Yeah.
Borrell.
Go and search his relative and him and find lots of cash. The Islamic Republic regime is bribed to anyone and they don't have any consciousness. That's the problem that we have. We are fighting to the word, as I understand. That makes me a lot angry because they're like Islamic Republic regime foreign minister. They talk about the human rights, but they think about themselves. There are no difference. So I understand that.
And by the way, you probably heard this when that foreign minister spoke at the UN Human Rights Council. It's called the Human Rights Council this week. None of the countries, the only people who walked out, we saw those videos of people walking out, but they were NGOs. They were not, all of the ambassadors and all of the countries that had agreed to be there stayed there. They stayed and sat, and most of them applauded at the end too. I found that very dispiriting. It's part of why I say this has been a really shitty week.
Exactly. Look, there is something is completely nonsense that they called World Organization. They don't want their fake World Organization change. It means that it always should have war. That's the thing that we already know. So we should fight to the word. That's the problem. And because of that, it should be long and we should not be tired.
Darya, your insights are great. I look forward to having you back on, hopefully in a more optimistic moment. And actually, I look forward to having you on in the future and able to use your real name.
Of course.
I really appreciate you doing this. Thanks again, brother.
Thank you that you're having me on your show. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. This is Roqe, episode 243, Voices from Inside Iran, part 8 of this series we've been doing. And for our final voice for this show, we're going to go to Tabriz now, and a young woman who has a master's in psychology. Her real name is Atiye, and for the sake of this interview, she has agreed to be called Atiye. Atiye in Tabriz, are you there?
Yes, hi everyone. I'm so glad to be here with you.
Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. From what I understand, you have been pretty active, or you were pretty active in demonstrations in Iran over the last 6 months. Tell me, do you see any signs of the uprising, of the revolution, of people being against the regime in the streets in Tabriz? Somebody we just had on before you, Darya, who's in Tehran, was saying you don't see as many people in the streets, but you can feel the anger in the air bubbling underneath. Do you feel that in Tabriz right now?
Of course احساس میکنم این اتفاق، یعنی این روند رو بخواید از اول در نظر بگیرید که توی شهرهای بزرگتر و توی شهرهای پیشگام در واقع که به یه ترتیبی شروع شد، این ترتیب توی تبریز یکم دیرتر بود. یعنی مثلا شاید اعتراضات ماشینی رو توی مثلا تهران و مشهد توی همون روزای اول ما داشتیم، اما توی تبریز مثلا توی وسطا میدیدی که روزای فراخوان همه ساعت 12 شب با ماشین بیرونن، در حالی که هیچ وقت اون تایم روز کسی بیرون نبود و حتی و همه میدونستن و حتی نیروهای امنیتی هم میدونستن که مردم برای چی بیرونن. و شما میدیدی ساعت 1 شب تمام شاهراها پر ماشین پلیس، پر گارد و پر ماشین عادیه، یعنی منتظر یک جرقه بود همه چیز. اما خیلی ترس حاکم بود و هست همچنان.
خب ولی الان چی؟
الان راستش یکم نمیخوام خیلی ابراز ناامیدی کنم، یعنی به خودم اجازه نمیدم، اما الان با اینکه خیلی ها شاید ناله‌شو بکنن، یعنی زبانی شاید ابراز نارضایتی بکنن، ولی عملا اون اکت رو دیگه ندارن. حداقل من که از تبریز دارم میام اینو میتونم بگم توی اون شهر.
Yeah, you know, to be honest, I mean, I have to tell you what the people who've preceded you, the guests we've had on so far from inside Iran, it hasn't been the most uplifting experience. I really appreciate everybody's honesty today, but and as I've been saying, it's been a really sad week in general, from the death of Pirooz to the poisoning, the chemical attacks on schoolgirls, to the foreign minister spouting nonsense in the United Nations. It's not been the greatest week, but the people we've spoken to before you have all said that they're particularly feeling less hopeful right now than they would have been feeling 2 or 3 months ago. It sounds like you feel the same way.
یکم شاید اینطوری باشه، یعنی پیش خودم در دنیای پدیداری خودم شاید من همچین چیزی احساس بکنم، اما مثل چیزی که احساس میکنم عمل نمیکنم که بخوام اینو انتشار بدم، یعنی بخوام این حس رو هم به بقیه منتقل کنم. سعی میکنم از چیزی که دوست دارم حرف بزنم و سعی میکنم حداقل توی جامعه کوچیکی که اطراف خودم دارم اون حالت مبارزه رو داشته باشم و حتی تشویق کنم.
I know. I mean, I feel the same way. I almost feel bad, you know, putting this podcast out there for people to hear that people are feeling depressed and hopeless. But it's important to know how you guys are feeling inside Iran, you know, because we, you know, living in Toronto or Los Angeles, we have big demonstrations here. We see the news of Reza Pahlavi in front of a big crowd in Germany, or Masih Alinejad or Hamid Ismailioun, and we think, oh, okay, there's a lot going on and there's a lot of excitement and activity. But, you know, I always want to know if that same feeling exists inside Iran as well.
قضیه اینه که بخوام صادقانه بگم که اگر این امکان وجود داشت که ما میتونستیم بدون اینکه بترسیم، اون یک ترس ساده از دستگیر شدن نیست، یک عالمه پیامد داره. بدون این رعب و وحشت اگر امکان همچین حضوری بود، مطمئن باشید که همه می اومدن. میتونم بگم 80%، 85% جامعه می اومد. شاید این که الان یکم خیابون خلوت شده، یکم کم رنگ شده، به خاطر همه این خونها و بهاهایی که داده شده و شاید خیلی از ماها توی شوک باشیم. یعنی من خودم شاید حالا صادقانه بخوام بگم، بعد از اینکه اون بچه رو توی ایزه اون اتفاق واسش افتاد، من به خودم گفتم که هیچ لیمیتی نداره. هیچ کس نمیتونه جلوش وایسه. این به بچه هم رحم نمیکنه و اینجوری دست خالی بودن شاید خیلی عاقلانه نباشه. من احساس میکنم نیاز به یک سری سازمان یافتگی داره، چون در مقابل کسی که تمام قواش رو به کار گرفته برای اینکه مقابلت وایسته، تو نمیتونی بدون یک هماهنگی قوی و بدون یک پشتوانه قوی بیای توی خیابون.
How do you feel about the news? I mean, this isn't a new thing, the poisoning of schoolgirls. We started hearing about this as far back as November, but this week now we're hearing about how widespread this is. How does this affect you, hearing this information that as you say, that there seems to be no limits to what this regime will do, and now it's the poisoning, the chemical attacks on young people, on young girls in school?
خب من همیشه سعی میکنم که به اولین چیزی که به ذهنم میرسه راجع به هر چیزی خیلی بها ندم، یعنی سعی کنم با دید تحلیلی عمیق‌تری بهش بپردازم. اما توی این مسئله با خودم گفتم اوکی، شما اگر میگید که کار ما نیست، خب شما چی کاره اید؟ اگر کار شما نیست، شما وظیفتون اینه که محافظت کنید. بعد این طرف قضیه اینه که خب واقعا نزدیک 600 نفر توی این داستان، توی این جنبش در واقع جونشون از دست دادن و حتی یک نفرشون رو به گردن نگرفت. چطور میتونه مسئولیتی قبول کنه در قبال این؟ و این یه حس استیصال داره واسه من و یک استیصالی که پر از خشمه و پر از انزجاره و بود استیصالش هم خیلی قویه، مخصوصا توی ماه‌های اخیر که بیشتر از پیش احساس کردم که همینطوری نمیشه. یعنی شاید آدمایی که بتونن از منافع شخصیشون بگذرن، بتونن یکم وسیع‌تر ببینن و بتونن همراه بشن، شاید هنوز به اون مرحله نرسیدیم که ما اینقدر تنها بودیم. چون اگر حرکت بزرگتر بود، مثلا حرکاتی که شاید توی یه سری از شهرها اتفاق افتاد ولی خب منتشر نشد، توی همه جا اتفاق نیفتاد یا مستمر حفظ نشد استریکش که بتونه اون تأثیری که مد نظرمون بود و بذاره. این من چون دارم صادقانه صحبت میکنم خیلی خشم منفعلی هست واسه من.
A final question to you, Atiya Jan. You have a master's in psychology, right?
بله. Okay.
Okay. I mean, this may be I don't know if this is silly or simplistic of me to ask you, but you know, we've had a few psychologists come on the show in the last 6 months and before, frankly, to talk about the psychological effects of everything that's going on the Iranian community, not just inside Iran, but in you know, all around the world, because all of us are scrolling through our phones every day looking at these horrific images and children being killed and all of that, and also on the other hand having the endorphins, the energy of wanting to believe that change is coming and being hopeful. If I were to ask you very, very plainly, how would you describe the psychological disposition, the psychological mindset of people inside Iran that you know these days?
من فکر میکنم دقیقاً اسمی که میشه روی مردم این روزهای ما گذاشت در واقع وضعیت درماندگی آموخته شده است. یه کاری که شاید با برنامه خیلی شسته رفته حکومت این کار رو کرد، یک زهر چشم خیلی عمیقی به همه ما نشون داد و حتی چند نفر رو به جرم‌های واهی اعدام کرد تا بقیه رو به اندازه کافی بترسونه و الان همه ما توی یه وضعیتی هستیم که میگیم خب حالا که نمیشه، پس من حالا که قرار نشه پس من به تنهایی چی کار بکنم. و این شاید باعث بشه که این شاید دلیلی باشه برای این خالی بودن عرصه توی این روزا. و دیگه اینکه یه جوری همه ما یه جور به یک نوعی PTSD شدیم و من هنوزم با این فشفشه هایی که مثلا میزنن واسه یک مناسبتی، حالا یک مناسبت حکومتی، من میترسم که این صدای تیراندازیه. یا الان کم کم داریم به چهارشنبه سوری نزدیک میشیم و تجربه شخصی خود من اینه که من هر صدایی رو که از توی خیابون میشنوم این دقیقا همون وحشت اون روزها رو واسه من تداعی میکنه و اینو از چند نفر دیگه از دوستام هم حالا به نوعی مشابه همچین چیزی شنیدم.
It's a crazy thing, you know, when you talk about feeling a tanhayi, you know, it's a crazy thing that there's millions of Iranians inside Iran and around the world who together want change, but are all feeling alone, wondering how to do that at times. It's a great paradox.
دقیقا. و اینکه انقدر توی این لاک خودمونیم همه، گاهی فکر میکنیم که فقط ماییم که معترضیم، فقط ماییم که به اوضاع اعتراض داریم، در حالی که ما چون صدامون رو بلند نمی کنیم تنهاییم. البته نمیخوام تمام
It's definitely not true that you are alone, though. You know that there's all of us standing behind you and hoping for you guys inside of Iran that change comes before too long. Atiya Jun, thank you so much for taking the time and for the openness and the honesty and for being on our program and even for using your real name. I really, really appreciate it.
منم خوشحال شدم که باهاتون صحبت کردم و ببخشید که انگلیسیم نیومد.
No, it's okay. It was خوب. Merci و خداحافظ. That's Atiya in Tabriz. Thank you to her and all of our voices from inside Iran today and our Roqe Roundtable. This is full time for Roqe for today. Remember, you can get any information about us or all of our back episodes, all of our uprising episodes, our videos, our Roqe moments, everything at roqemedia.com, ROQE media.com, which is also where you can become a Roqe member and a Patreon member. Thanks to the amazing team who put this show together. Savi Roham, KNZ, Talented Anahita, Parisa, Pegah, Mehrdad, and Shaya. Thank you to all of you out there for supporting us and sharing our content. Please subscribe if you've not done so already. You can find me on Instagram at Jian Ghomeshi. And as ever, Mizun Bashi.